Abiy Ahmed and Kumsa Deriba, known as Jaal Marro, were brothers. They shared a deep connection through their Oromo heritage, which was a significant part of their identity and upbringing. The Oromo people faced systemic discrimination in Ethiopia, often being marginalized and oppressed by the ruling powers. Their childhood was marked by hardship and struggle, growing up in rural Ethiopia where resources were scarce and opportunities limited. They witnessed numerous injustices against their community, seeing firsthand the suffering and oppression that their people endured daily. These experiences fueled a burning desire for change within them, igniting a passion to fight for their people's rights and dignity. They aspired for equality and justice for the Oromo people, dreaming of a future where their community could live freely and with respect. Abiy chose a path within the government, believing that he could enact change from within the system and bring about reform. He believed in the power of political reform, addressing crowds and working tirelessly to push for systemic changes. Jaal Marro, on the other hand, took up arms, convinced that armed resistance was the only viable path to achieving their goals. He felt that through armed struggle, they could force the change that was so desperately needed for their people. Their paths diverged, with Abiy working within the system and Jaal Marro fighting from the outside, but their ultimate goal remained the same. Both brothers fought tirelessly for the rights of their people, each in their own way, driven by a shared vision of freedom and justice. They carried the hopes and dreams of the Oromo community on their shoulders, becoming symbols of resistance and hope. Their struggle became a powerful symbol of the Oromo people's desire for freedom and self-determination, inspiring many. Their story reflected the larger struggle of the Oromo people, a narrative of resilience and the fight for recognition. It was a struggle for recognition, equality, and self-determination, a fight that resonated deeply within the hearts of many. Their lives became intertwined with the fate of their people, their actions shaping the future of the Oromo community. The brothers' journey mirrored the turbulent history of Ethiopia itself, a nation grappling with its identity and future. Abiy Ahmed climbed the ranks of the Ethiopian government. He served in the military and intelligence services. He gained a reputation as a skilled negotiator. His political acumen was evident in his strategic thinking.
The OLA fought for Oromo self-determination. We operated from remote bases within Ethiopia. I commanded respect and loyalty from my fighters.
Jaal Marro, meanwhile, became a key figure in the Oromo Liberation Army, or OLA. Their paths were in stark contrast. Abiy worked within the system, while Jaal Marro challenged it directly. Abiy sought gradual change through dialogue. Jaal Marro believed in armed struggle to achieve their goals. Despite their differences, both gained influence within their respective spheres. Abiy became a prominent voice for reform within the government. Jaal Marro emerged as a powerful symbol of Oromo resistance. Their contrasting approaches reflected the complexities of the Oromo struggle. In 2018, Abiy Ahmed became Prime Minister of Ethiopia, a nation yearning for change and stability. His election sparked hope for change, igniting a wave of optimism across the country. He promised sweeping political and economic reforms, aiming to transform Ethiopia's future. He vowed to address the grievances of marginalized groups, ensuring their voices were heard.
We dared to believe in a brighter future, filled with hope and unity. The cycle of violence seemed to be ending, replaced by a newfound sense of peace. Abiy's promises offered a glimmer of hope for reconciliation and national unity.
His initial actions were met with jubilation. He released political prisoners, a significant step towards freedom, and lifted restrictions on the press, allowing for greater freedom of expression. He made peace with neighboring Eritrea, ending a long-standing stalemate and fostering regional stability. For a brief moment, peace seemed attainable, and the nation dared to dream. The Oromo people in particular dared to believe in a brighter future filled with promise. The cycle of violence seemed to be ending, giving way to a period of calm. Abiy's promises offered a glimmer of hope for reconciliation and a united Ethiopia. The possibility of a united and prosperous Ethiopia seemed within reach, a dream shared by many. However, this period of optimism was short-lived, as underlying tensions resurfaced. The deep-seated divisions within Ethiopian society remained, challenging the newfound peace. The power struggle between the government and the OLA intensified, leading to renewed conflict. The fragile peace began to unravel, leaving the nation once again in turmoil. Despite initial hopes, tensions rose between Abiy Ahmed and Jaal Marro. Disagreements emerged over the implementation of reforms.
The OLA accused Abiy of not doing enough to address Oromo grievances.
The government viewed the OLA as a threat to national security. The situation escalated into open conflict. Clashes broke out between government forces and the OLA. Both sides accused each other of atrocities. The violence displaced thousands of civilians. The conflict deepened the rift between Abiy and Jaal Marro. What began as a political disagreement spiraled into a full-blown war. The hopes for peace were dashed as the country descended into chaos. The conflict had devastating consequences for the Oromo people. Caught in the crossfire, they bore the brunt of the violence. The cycle of violence and displacement continued unabated. The dream of lasting peace seemed increasingly distant.
Numerous attempts were made to reconcile Abiy Ahmed and Jaal Marro. Elders and religious leaders tried to mediate.
International organizations offered to facilitate dialogue. However, deep mistrust hindered any progress.
The government insisted on the OLA's disarmament as a precondition for talks. The OLA demanded guarantees of autonomy and security for the Oromo people.
Both sides accused the other of lacking sincerity and commitment to peace.
The failure of these attempts deepened the despair. Each failed attempt reinforced the belief that a peaceful resolution was impossible.
The cycle of violence and mistrust became further entrenched.
The international community expressed concern, but struggled to find effective solutions. The conflict exposed the limitations of external intervention in deeply rooted internal conflicts.
The search for peace seemed like a distant dream.
As the conflict dragged on, the Oromo people paid a heavy price. Their lives were upended by violence and displacement, their communities were torn apart, their livelihoods were destroyed.
Children were particularly vulnerable. Many were orphaned or separated from their families. Their education was disrupted, robbing them of their future. The trauma of conflict left an indelible mark on their young lives.
Women also faced immense hardship. They bore the brunt of caring for displaced families. They were vulnerable to gender-based violence. Their voices were often silenced in the male-dominated conflict.
The conflict exacerbated existing inequalities. Access to healthcare and education became even more limited. The social fabric of Oromo society was frayed. Their cultural identity was under threat. Despite the seemingly insurmountable challenges, the Oromo people yearned for peace. They drew strength from their cultural heritage. They sought guidance from their traditional conflict resolution mechanisms.
The Gadaa system, a centuries-old system of governance and conflict resolution, offered a beacon of hope. Based on principles of consensus building and reconciliation, Gadaa provided a framework for dialogue and peace building.
Oromo elders, respected for their wisdom and neutrality, emerged as key figures in peace initiatives. They facilitated local dialogues and mediated between warring factions. Their efforts, though challenging, kept the hope for peace alive.
The resilience of the Oromo people in the face of adversity was a testament to their spirit. They refused to give up on the dream of a peaceful future. Their enduring hope offered a glimmer of light amidst the darkness.
The Oromo people recognized the need for external support in their quest for peace. They appealed to the international community to play a more active role in mediating the conflict. They called for an end to the flow of arms and for accountability for human rights violations.
They urged the African Union and the United Nations to pressure both the Ethiopian government and the OLA to engage in meaningful dialogue. They emphasized the need for a neutral third party to facilitate talks and ensure a sustainable peace agreement.
The international community had a moral obligation to act. The conflict had regional implications, threatening to destabilize the entire Horn of Africa. Ignoring the plight of the Oromo people would have far-reaching consequences.
A coordinated international effort was crucial. Diplomatic pressure, coupled with humanitarian aid and support for peace-building initiatives, was essential to end the suffering and create a more peaceful and stable future for all Ethiopians.
Despite the ongoing conflict and numerous failed reconciliation attempts, the Oromo people clung tenaciously to the hope for a brighter and more harmonious future. They envisioned a future where their children could live in peace, where their voices were heard, and where their rights were respected and upheld by all.
They dreamt of a united Ethiopia where all citizens were treated equally, regardless of their ethnicity, religion, or political affiliation. They believed in the possibility of a country where diversity was celebrated, where cultural differences were seen as strengths, and where everyone had the opportunity to thrive and prosper.
The path to peace would be long and arduous, filled with challenges and setbacks, but the spirit of the Oromo people remained unbroken and steadfast. Their resilience, combined with their unwavering commitment to dialogue and their deep-rooted cultural values, gave hope that one day peace would prevail and justice would be served.
The international community had a responsibility to stand in solidarity with the Oromo people, recognizing their struggles and supporting their quest for peace. By supporting their efforts to achieve a just and lasting peace, the world could contribute to a brighter future for Ethiopia and the entire region, fostering stability and harmony for generations to come.